which brings us to our next guest, Dean True, who is the branch director of adult services. No, not those kind of adult services we just talked about, but right here in Shasta County. But you also you cover so many different areas here that you're head of.
Yes, the adult services has many different programs.
And but you're the one that we were. Can you go through all of them? I mean, you've got so many that we were talking about earlier.
Sure. Under my umbrella is in-home supportive services, adult protective services, public guardian, mental health, and drug alcohol services. Because we are an integrated health and human services agency, there are elements of those happening in other branches of the Health and Human Services Agency as well.
Okay. One of the things, if you hear something in the background, it's Kids Unlimited, which are in the studio next door singing their little hearts out, and they are loud and they are good. We were with us earlier today. We've had a very eclectic group of people on today. Kids Unlimited, Dennis Hoff, and now of course Dean True. One of the things and we were talking a little bit about this, Dean, is that I'm one of those people that says that we need more space in jails. We need, when the Board of Supervisors turned down this additional space for whatever reason that they could come up with, they turned it down, and the community as a whole was upset. We need more space. We're turning people loose right and left. We arrest them, bring them down, turn them loose. So I said, we need to build double the jail space we have. And then I've been reading a lot about there's another side to this, that the mental health portion of jails also plays a big part, that our prisons and our jails have become the de facto mental health facilities for people with these problems. They get arrested, they get put into jail.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
And so now, this is one of the reasons that I wanted to bring you in to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you learn about our mental health facilities here in Shasta County, money's been cut away from the facilities and from being able to do your job. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about was what are the capabilities here in Shasta County?
Well, we have lots of different programs going on right now. I mentioned to you just before we came on the air that approximately, not quite maybe 2 years ago, Shasta County got a new inpatient psychiatric, 16-bed psychiatric facility. That's for accepting people who are on 5150, danger to self, danger to others. So that was a great addition. Within the last year and a half, you've probably heard the term maybe collaborative courts. Shasta County, we began a behavioral health court, or what's sometimes referred to as a mental health court. These would be individuals who may have found themselves charged with a felony, but a team, and that team consists of the court, the judge, district attorney, public defender, mental health, probation. We get together and we go, but for this gentleman's untreated mental illness, this crime would probably not have happened. And so we work with that individual to voluntarily kind of divert out of the jail and voluntarily participate in intensive outpatient services. So that's something we just started within about the last year and a half.
How's that worked?
It's working well. It's like any new program, much like the RESPAD, the new acute psychiatric facility as well. It takes a while to get these things up and running. As a matter of fact, we just had our first graduating class. There were 2 people from the behavioral health court. It's approximately a 12-month program by which individuals are committing themselves to going to groups a couple times a week, taking their medications. So there's a lot of intensive case management on the mental health side. And then probation is there to say, we want you to keep you on the up and up.
Are they provided housing and all this?
It is one of our goals to make sure they secure housing, and the 2 graduates have. So one of the jobs for both probation and the case manager is to help that individual secure stable housing. One of the things that I had heard you might be interested as well is we also the county operates a 15-bed crisis residential and recovery center. So it's a 15-bed facility that's licensed by community care licensing. It's board and care. It's also certified by the state for crisis residential services. People can stay for approximately up to 30 days. So when there are individuals who find themselves, momentarily without housing, or maybe their housing is collapsing on them, we have the ability to move them into the crick. We call it the crick. We have the ability to move them into there and give them a little more of a soft landing, work with them for maybe 2 or 3 weeks at trying to secure some housing.
Okay. The court that you had, it's taken a year and a half.
The behavioral health court.
Right, and it takes a year to get somebody through it.
It could take longer.
It could take longer.
Could take longer.
Is this and how many people started?
We started very small, and when you say people, I assume you mean the clients that would be participating in that. Right now, we seem to bounce around between 10 and a dozen people in the program right now. It's an intensive program. I refer to it sometimes in mental health, where there's a term full-service partnership, which means that you have a case manager that has a caseload of only 15 people, because these are individuals that need intensive support on a regular basis. In other words, almost maybe not quite daily contact, but support around them to keep them on a straight treatment path.
So what would you say, so you've got 2 people that have just graduated from it. Your success ratio then would be?
I don't have that number with me right now. I believe when I was looking at some of the screening, not everyone is appropriate for the behavioral health court, and it is a voluntary program. So we've gotten lots of referrals. I believe we've received somewhere between 20 and 30 referrals. There are people who've been accepted into the program who, unfortunately, have fallen out of the program, but I don't have those exact numbers with me.
Okay. I was just looking at, ratio of success here. I mean, if you're putting a lot of effort, a lot of people, and there's probably a lot of money.
We are.
With that, and realizing just starting out, too.
Yeah, it's a new program, and we're going to keep trying to track these numbers. I can tell you, though, when we modeled it obviously off of other counties that have these programs, and they have more concrete examples of success rates, and clearly one of the reasons why we adopted it.
All right. Well, that was good. I'm glad to hear that. We're looking at other models of this and seeing how they're doing it. And if it is a success, then maybe it's something we can adopt. All right, we got to take a quick break here. This portion of the show brought to you by Redding Crackmaster Windshield Repair. Another veteran-owned business that can fix chips to cracks over 24 inches in length. Jeff Wurst can help you with this. He guarantees his work. Many places don't do that. And he fixed a crack in my windshield. I know you're probably tired of hearing this, but it's been 7 years, and you still can't see it. Give him a call at 241-8373 or stop by 3208 Market Street right here in Redding. Redding Crackmaster Windshield Repair. All right, we'll be right back after these messages. Dean True, the Branch Director of Adult Services right here for Shasta County, is my guest. We're here with Dean True, who is the Branch Director for Adult Services right here in Shasta County. We're talking about mental health facilities. Now, we talk about the shortage for Shasta County in the ability, because the money's been pulled back and all this. But there's other services here in town that offer mental health.
Yes, one of the things I'm always trying to let people know is we're just a piece of the treatment continuum there. So there is Dr. Thomas Andrews has a very robust private practice, and he has another full-time psychiatrist with him. The Shasta Community Health Center, which is a huge provider here in Redding, and the community in general, has 2 full-time psychiatrists as well. There are individual therapists that have shingles, including for services as well. So there are a variety of places. There continues to be talk about parity in terms of people's private insurance and the ability to receive mental health services there as well. I'll state the obvious, which is primary care physicians prescribe a large number of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications in their private offices as well. So there's a lot of different services going on. The county is focused primarily, and our mandate and where our funding comes from is for people with more serious persistent mental illness, or on the children's side, children with a serious emotional disturbance. So that's our focus, that and securing inpatient psychiatric beds for people in an acute distress or long-term residential. That's where the county tends to be focusing.
Okay. I understand that. I know there's a place that opened up about a year ago, and we were talking about that here. But are there? Somebody else told me. Maybe I was talking to one of your people that said that there's other facilities around here that can take people as inpatients in the general area. Or maybe I misunderstood.
Well, there are. So you may have heard Shasta Regional Medical Center within probably, hopefully by the end of this year, will be opening a 20-bed geropsychiatric unit. Over in Chico, Enloe Behavioral Health is a private hospital as well. I don't myself interact as much with the private hospital since our focus is people who are in acute distress.
Right.
Yeah.
How many people? And I'm going to put you on the spot here because I already asked you this question.
Okay.
Are walking around out there?
Yeah.
That need. I mean, I see people walking. Our location is here downtown. We have God knows, a cross-section of the world comes through here. The ones that are screaming at our posters outside, the ones that are coming through with their heads straight up in the air, talking in some language we'll never know.
Well, and I appreciate you asking that. So, again, I'm not going to attempt to say how many people out there have a mental illness.
It's not even counting the ones sitting in here.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll focus on, though, I can tell you, though, people sometimes don't appreciate, we do outreach. We have people who are going out and trying to engage people. But what sometimes people don't quite appreciate is, unless you are doing a couple things, obviously breaking the law, but if you look like you're a danger to self or danger to someone else, there can be interventions. Short of that, people may be experiencing mental illness, do not want to receive treatment, and there's no way that you can force that. Which then requires of us, which is probably a need, I would say, it's very intensive to engage those people on a regular basis. You might just start by saying, "Hey, how you doing today? I'm okay, get away, whatever." You have to continue to create a relationship with that individual. That takes a lot of time. And so that's one of the areas that we don't have enough funds to do more of that intensive, repetitive go out and outreach to people who people may see walking around who do have mental illness, but they are not inclined to receive treatment. We spoke a little earlier about the fact that medications are frequently the front line for these significant mental illness, but they carry side effects. And when people start feeling better, their thinking gets a little straighter. Unfortunately, one of the things they may start doing is not taking their medication.
I feel a lot better. I don't need that now.
That's right. Well, and it'd be like it's like kind of like a diabetic. Yeah. Well, my blood sugar's in control. I don't think I'll take my insulin. Well, that's not a good idea.
That's why it's under control, everybody.
That's right.
It's a. It's so interesting because, we see, as we said, we watch people walking down the street. I can't tell if they're just drunk or if they're mentally disturbed.
Right.
One of the things, though, I asked you about was how many veterans you see. And it was gratifying to hear your answer here. So because veterans obviously are not immune to having mental problems.
They're not, and most of the time, if a veteran comes in, if they are in some way, and we can maybe even assist with that, if they're connected with the VA, there are psychiatric services here in town at the clinic, and so that's where a lot of people will receive their services.
And you work in a partnership with them, because one of the things about the case, when you're doing the court cases, is tell when I asked you about that, how you would work with the VA.
We would. To my knowledge, I don't think we've had a fully connected veteran come under the behavioral health court, which would have meant they committed a felony, and then. Right. But we would work with them. We have worked with other partners in the community to provide. We tended to begin the program thinking people would receive their mental health services from county mental health. But relatively soon after the program started, we found that, in fact, people may be logistically up maybe towards Round Mountain area. And so we've been working with people to still have them involved in the program, but receive their mental health services from another provider.
Okay, but that can work too.
Yeah, it can, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, my guest is Dean True, who heads up the Adult Services branch for the county of Shasta. And plus, we're going to start talking about some of the other areas that you're all working into, and we also want to continue on the mental health. Welcome back to Free Fire Radio on KCNR 1460 with Carl and Linda Bott. This portion of the show is brought to you by Cypress Square Barbershop right off Athens Avenue. It's a man's last stronghold there, veteran-owned business that gives discounts for veterans and seniors. I tell you what, it's the Cheers of Barbershops. Cypress Square Barbershop, off Athens Avenue, across from the subway there. My guest is Dean True, who is the branch director for adult services right here for the county of Shasta. Was that Sink House right there?
The correct phrase is jazz on the veranda. This from High Command.
Oh, okay. It's jazz on the veranda down at View 202. All right. Coming from the Commander-in-Chief of House. The other aspects that you work on is it adult protective services or
So there's adult protective services, which is a vital service. It's a great group of people. Primarily, they're looking to respond to concerns about elderly, most often being victimized either by fraud or physical abuse. They investigate, try to resolve those issues. They're a great team. In-home supportive services.
Elder abuse,
Yeah.
A lot of that?
It's there. It's definitely out there. And I should say not only elder abuse, but they're also charged with helping people who are potentially can be victimized, and that could even be people with developmental disabilities or people with serious mental illness who are victimized. Adult Protective Services will also investigate and try to resolve those as well. So, no, it's definitely out there.
I know there's houses here in town that house adults. That almost like transition houses. I don't know how else to put this, but assisted living houses for people that've got mental problems or...
Well, one of the terms we tend to use is board and care. There are definitely board and cares. There's a new board and care that's going to be opening up in Shasta Lake City called Ridgeview. We're really excited about this. It's going to be a great facility. It's going to have a 15-bed licensed board and care facility. Above it is going to have kind of independent apartments that can serve up to 12 people, and then another apartment down below that serve 4 people.
Now, how can you get into these things? Or what's the criteria, I guess I should say?
Yeah, the board and cares from the mental health side tend to be referrals from the Shasta County Mental Health. Okay. That's not exclusive. That we can have certainly partners. Certainly, Shasta Community Health Center that has psychiatric services for people can make recommendations for that. Dr. Andrews' office. So we tend to coordinate that. We'll be obviously contracting with that facility to find placement for people. There have not been enough beds in Shasta County for a long time. That's why I wanted to say we are very excited about this program opening up. There's a large facility over in LeBron. They take up to almost 49 people that have people with serious mental illness who really need a little more of a structured treatment environment, not locked, okay, and they're okay, but they kind of need that, hey, it's time to get up, time to take your meds, let's get some meals together, some activities, those kinds of things.
Well, do you work with agencies like Northern Valley Catholic Social Services? Do you guys kind of cross-pollinate as far as referrals and stuff?
Absolutely. They're one of our contractors. They do a lot of services on the youth side, on the children's side.
I know a friend who got housing through them, and
absolutely.
It was excellent.
They have several homes. I worked over in Butte County. They did some homes over there, supported housing. No, they're a great partner.
Okay. You know, I've seen, like the house across the street from us is a house that has people that kind of come in and out of it, but it's got a manager there, and it's never been any problems or anything like this, but it's like 6 people that live there.
Yeah.
And obviously it's some kind of, they walk around. It's not like they're locked up or anything, but there's obviously something going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not illicitly going on. That's not what I'm talking about. But are these kind of facilities we're talking about? Because this, I guess, owns 3 of them right here in town.
They can be. There are a lot of homes for people with developmental disabilities as well, and they'll be smaller. Maybe take 4 to 6 to 8 people in these in private homes, and people will set up a business. Quite a few of them will be licensed by community care licensing, but that's not required. There are also people
who can just be set up without even being...
It really can be just a landlord-tenant. We sometimes refer to them as not board and cares, but room and board. So I pay an individual to have a room in that house.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm seeing here.
Okay.
And
It's possible.
Not that they've been a problem or anything, but
No.
it's like if you had 16-year-old twins, you probably have more problems across the street than they have.
Okay.
But it's always people moving in and out.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, there haven't been a problem. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that's why I understood it. I can open one of those. If I just get a house with 4 bedrooms in it, and I can open one of these things, right?
Pretty much. I mean, you do need to be careful. Sometimes people do open these things up, and at some point, if they begin to look like a licensed board and care facility, that's when the county might kind of come in, or community care licensing actually would come in and say, what are you doing exactly? Who are these individuals? And they'd probably look at the level of ability, functioning of that individual. You know, if you're just a stand-up guy and you're renting a room from somebody, nobody's ever going to get involved in that. But if they're individuals, adults that have vulnerabilities, and for whatever reason there comes to be a question of what is the level of care happening there, then there are agencies that can maybe step in.
Okay. It's a lucrative business.
Well, yeah, I don't know I can tell you this. Board and care facilities are classically, I would not characterize them as lucrative, which is one of the reasons why we don't have enough beds.
Well, board and care is not.
That's a licensed board and care.
That's a licensed board and care. They're inspected, and
correct.
They get X amount of dollars. Is that from the state? State and county?
They frequently, people in licensed board and care facilities are on SSI, and so there's a certain amount of money they get, and then that individual signs over that amount, and then they get a certain amount of money for their own personal care.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the way I understood it.
Yeah.
Where they're just a room and board.
That would be up to you and the landlord, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting thing because I've never seen it before until they moved across the street.
Yeah.
And again,
one way that
the guy came around and he talked to all the neighbors and all this, and he gave his phone numbers and this.
Right.
And frankly, the only if there's been a problem, it's when the ambulances come in to take care of them.
And I was going to say, one way that somebody might take a look at something if they thought it wasn't on the up and up is if somebody called in a concern to Adult Protective Services.
Right.
Adult Protective Services said, this is either a vulnerable adult or an elderly adult, and I need to check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm here with Dean True, who is a branch director for adult services here in Shasta County, and we've been talking about the mental health facilities here. That there's more and more opening up. It sounds like is there a light at the end of the tunnel that's not a train coming at us?
Well, I'm very heartened by the fact that, again, this Shasta Lake City project is going on. We've got the behavioral health court going. Honestly, at some point when the facility that the sheriff will be opening, the 64-bed facility, is designed to include rehabilitation on the jail side. So I think that can be a good thing at some point.
Now, you don't handle Child Protective Services. That's a different.
I don't.
That's a different group there.
My coworker Maxine Wada is the branch director of Children's Services. That's in her area.
Okay. How long have you been in this business, Dean?
Well, I've been an RN for over 30 years, and I've been in the mental health field for probably over 25 in different settings. I've worked at forensic units in state hospitals. I've worked in locked treatment facilities, and I've worked outpatient. You see more? Is there more mental health problems that you've seen? I mean, you've got a lot of experience in it. I can't help but think that, and okay, this is my own probably bias here, but it seems to me that there's been more and more of this. Now, I don't know if it's because of the fact, like Bob said, is we threw a lot of pills at people for a long time. And then so that it's resulted in in it getting worse, right.
Or if it's the fact that we've come up with less facilities, so you don't see them anymore. I know that once they said that no, you can't hold a person against their will.
Right.
That there's been more on the street.
Yeah.
But in your experience, is there more?
Well, I think I'd say it this way. And you asked me about numbers. When you read some of the articles and more journals and whatnot, they might say 3 to 5% of the population may have a serious mental illness. By that, I might mean, major depression, a bipolar, schizophrenia, those kinds of things. So our population has been growing. So I think there are larger numbers of people. I think there was, you're probably aware, there was a movement in California, and actually this is nationwide, to reduce the state hospital.
Right.
The people in state hospitals. The problem with that grand plan, which was good, which was to bring people back to the community, was the communities weren't fully prepared with an array of full services. So I think we're finally getting ahead of that. There was a period of time, probably through the 80s and early 90s, where there was really, what are we going to do with all these people who have been kind of, there's been a lot of caretaking that went on with them in the state hospitals. And developing systems of care to provide those services. I really think we're beginning to get ahead of the curve. I would say that we continue to be, from my perspective, not really fully funded. One of the major issues in the mental health field is stigma. And people are kind of afraid of people with mental illness. They're odd, those kinds of things. And that stigma, and this is my own opinion, I think that stigma somehow results in a little less than robust funding for people who have an illness that need care that is more complicated than going to the doctor and just, you have an infection, here's an antibiotic. It's more complicated than that. It's a real social integration. These people are isolated frequently.
I can tell you that a lot of veterans have been painted with this post-traumatic stress disorder paintbrush, and it has caused a problem with employment for a lot of them. And so one of the reasons that the employment for veterans is up in the unemployment is 15% or higher, is probably higher than that because those are just the known numbers, is because of that. And so I agree with that. I believe that there's a social stigma to it. I don't know if it's in the case of veterans, they're throwing lots of money at it, but they're not throwing quality care at it in the sense of having people that really that can run this huge operation.
Yes. It's tough. It's very tough. And employment, to be honest with you, in the last 10, 12 years or so, in mental health, we're trying to do more of a recovery-oriented services, which the old school, maybe 20, 30 years ago, was you have a mental illness, I'm terribly sorry, the best you can ever do is maybe live in a board and care facility.
Right.
Versus the recovery model, which says, wait a minute, let's see how far you can go.
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions here that I'm going to be asking you here.
Okay.
We've got to take a quick break, but one of them, the first one is, and it's just exactly what you're talking about, being able to work and go on. So a lot of good questions here. Okay. And we'll get to that right after the break. But this portion of the show is brought to you by Northern Firearms Instruction. Ted Leidy is the owner-operator, and he has a team of professional NRA instructors that provide the most complete CCW training in Northern California. And if you don't have a weapon to take this course with, they will provide a free firearm rental and ammunition for Shasta County residents. They take this course, and what they'll do after that then is help you pick out that weapon that's right for you. Give them a call at 999-1822 or check them out online, readingccw.com. We'll be right back. Our guest is Dean True, who is a branch director of adult services right here in Shasta County. Get the show on, get paid. My guest is, and I'll be giving away some more tomorrow too, and the next day, Dean True, who is the branch director of adult services right here in Shasta County. Now, I have a series of questions that came in on this. Let's start with the one about, do any of the ones that are in these homes have violent past sexual predator types that go into these homes in these neighborhoods? Yeah, and these are in neighborhoods too, right?
Absolutely. And I would say no, community care licensing, these more formal. You are always supposed to be vigilant for making sure that things are safe. Now, that's not to say that somebody might have a past, but if somebody, say, 10 years ago had something when they were not stable on their medications, it would not mean that they would be excluded from ever being in one of these homes. The sexual predator part, you're well aware of those laws, and frequently
you can't be within 1,000 feet of a school. Well, but I understand that that's been sued. I mean, they sued in court about that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that, but that's very possible.
Because what they were doing on some of the sexual predator, and I guess on the sex offenders, I guess I should say, as opposed to pedophiles, is that sex offenders, they couldn't find any housing for them because they were within 1,000 feet of
That's right.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
So that they sued to get that changed.
Yeah. But these homes that I'm talking about on the mental health side are really for people with serious mental illness that have difficulty and need help stabilizing in a housing situation. These are not, really, they're not coming from the criminal from that perspective.
Okay. They're not from, okay.
Yeah.
The second question is, if they're able to, can they pay? Okay, they pay rent with SSI. Can they work?
They can, and I'm sorry I don't know what the limit is on that. There is a strict limit about how much money an individual on SSI can make, and they can make some without any impact to the SSI. But at a certain point, it could tip over, and that's one of the challenges when you're trying to help somebody get back on their, really reach a level of functioning that they want to be independent on. It's like, when do they kind of break from SSI and they really go full-time, employment?
Into a job.
That's a real challenge because they could lose valuable services depending on what happens.
Okay, now there's two. The question is, and I think that we've got a little confusion here. So if the homes are not supervised, not licensed, there's two types of homes we're talking about, and we've been talking about. One is a licensed home that takes that. Is this correct?
No. I'm sorry. I would say when you say homes, certainly that we use, those are licensed. Individuals who open their house to rent to somebody, no, they are not regulated. But those are not facilities, say, that we utilize.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's two types here. It's the ones you are licensed. They are supervised. I mean, you can come down.
Absolutely.
You can come down and inspect.
Absolutely.
These other ones that I'm talking about is entrepreneur who rents a house.
Correct.
And moves in 4 to 6 people.
Right.
I don't think they can have more than a certain amount, but I may be wrong. And then they put a manager in the house to kind of watch them, and that's completely different. Now, the only way that you all would get involved with that is if somebody calls and said, "I think that there's this person that's wandering around that needs help, and he's living in this house."
That's exactly
then you would
right.
come down. Then you would come down and
Adult
supervise.
Protective Services might come in and say, "What is going on here?" Yeah.
Okay, so it's and so what you're trying to do is in these houses is just get them to that next step, that they can then take care of themselves and get a job and all that.
Correct.
Tough job.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Is there people are saying there's more? You're saying that the population is larger, so it seems like there's more people out there.
Well, and then I coupled that with the fact that there was the move out of the state hospitals, and there's a move to keep people integrated into their communities. And again, there's a issue of stigma, and that people are becoming more heightened aware of that. And we haven't even gotten into, and I realize we're close. The other extreme challenge there is people with serious mental illness are also very prone to having drug alcohol issues, which only compound their problem.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that might have maybe more of a primary drug alcohol problem. But there may be a co-occurring mental illness.
Oh, yeah, they burnt themselves out, too. I mean, some of them those synopses don't work anymore.
There are people that go to psychiatric hospitalizations due to methamphetamine psychosis. Okay, but, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got like 4 minutes left here, Dean. Yeah. Okay, you're King Dean.
Okay.
What do we need to do in Shasta County?
Do we need
a big facility?
I would prefer that we try to be more robust in our outpatient services and more services in general that support people to prevent them from getting to that level where they need that secured treatment setting. That would be my ideal. We're constantly, and I wouldn't possibly go into the funding problem, but people who we need to place into these secured locked treatment settings are quite expensive, and we're unable to leverage dollars. And by that, I mean FFP, federal financial participation. Again, don't want to go too far into that. So my preference would be to have more robust outpatient services. One model is the Assertive Community Treatment Team, which is clinician, case manager, RN, who are able to go out and wrap around people. Certainly in children's services, wrap around is kind of the term that's used, which is you need to really kind of get around this person and provide a variety of assistance to them. So my preference is not to build a big place to move all these people. It would be to provide more robust services that would prevent them from having to go to those facilities.
Do we need you've got a 5150 place there now that can take 15?
16.
16. Do we need a 5150 place that can take 40?
We need we absolutely could benefit from a 5150 place that can take children under 18. The facility that we have now is only for 18 and over. So a youth.
You get a lot of those, huh?
Youth? Yes, absolutely. So that would be quite beneficial. Could we use another inpatient unit in town? One of the challenges as well is there aren't enough beds, and there aren't enough beds that can help people who have an acute psychiatric problem, but they also got a co-occurring medical problem. A lot of these places are like, we strictly handle the mental health. We're not prepared to handle this medical condition as well as that. That's very difficult to find placement for.
Is it getting any better? Yeah, it's getting any better.
Is what getting any better?
Our ability to handle these things.
Do
you ever feel overrun sometimes?
Well, yes.
Yes.
I think that would not.
It's never ending.
Well, there are challenges. These are significant societal challenges to try to get ahead of the curve and to really provide comprehensive services.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Dean True. It's been our guest. I got other things in here. It sounds like there's a number of these entrepreneur types that could have anybody in these houses. Sexual offenders, they could have anybody in there.
I'm not. I guess that's true. Again,
it's an independent thing. Yeah. And in fact, the one across the street, we asked the guy. He says, "No, I don't have any sexual. I don't take those."
Yeah.
But the main reason is he's too close to school.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just be honest about it.
Okay.
All right. Dean True, Branch Director, Adult Services for Health and Human Services Agency in the County of Shasta. I appreciate you being here, Dean.
And thank you for having me.
A lot of questions you answered. And okay, now tomorrow, Sheriff Tom Basinko will be our guest. It's going to be interesting talking to Tom about what happened with Matthew Graham and this whole case with Baby Ember. And he was, you don't see Tom Basinko angry very many times. Once when the jail got turned down, he was quite upset about them removing the ankle bracelet from Graham. So that'll be some of the things we talk about tomorrow, along with the photographer of the Rock Stars Homeless Project. He'll be here tomorrow, too. Remember, it's the good guys against the bad guys. Which are you?
Back